Hey, what's good? You know you have a lot of money when you take Sunday away from Jesus. But that don't even matter because Saturday is the Sabbath. But I digress. The point that I'm trying to make is that the NFL has a bunch of money. The Search Party channel investigates the NFL using socialism to get rich. I'm going to be working on some drawings for an animation. Before we get into it, remember to go to coconutjustice.com to get you some clothes that I think would look good on you. Let's go. All right. There's a lot of rich people that use socialistic, we'll say, what would you, techniques, socialist techniques to get rich. It's funny how the government is in the way until people need it. And rich people be using the government in the negative ways. But anyway, let's get into this. How the NFL used socialism to get rich.
If you had to guess what the 20 most valuable sports teams on Earth are, where would you start?
The Yankees would be one.
Football
The Dodgers
is the most
would be
popular
one.
sport on Earth. So you'd guess some famous
Football
football
would
teams would be on
be-
this list. Real Madrid, yep, here at number 11.
Oh,
Manchester United,
that football.
check. Barcelona, Liverpool, check and check. How about that team that won a historic 3 trophies last year and is owned by an ultra-rich monarchy? Nope, not on the list. In fact, that's it for
Yeah.
football teams. Baseball also has a huge fan base, but only one team made the list, and there's only 3 basketball teams.
Yankees, told you.
The last 12 teams on this list don't play any of the world's most popular sports.
Hey, let me tell you something. There's a lot of people that hate on the New York Yankees and even now the Dodgers, but the ownership knows exactly what they're doing. If you build a winning team, you're going to make your money back hand over fist. So folks get upset that the Yankees and like they spend too much money or they buy their way into championships, whatever. Listen, once I get rich and I start buying myself the Cubs or the Bulls or the Bears or whatever, I'm going nuts. I'm gonna be making so many YouTube videos that I'm gonna go and get all the best players, and we're winning every year. I don't care. That's how you guys turned it into that. So yeah, number 1 would be Carlos's Cubs. Number 2 would be New York Yankees.
They all play American football in the National Football League, which has pretty much been printing money for 50 years.
Cowboys is it's funny. The Cowboys are
Today,
basically
the
a
NFL makes
marketing
more money
scheme.
than any other sports league in the world, and it's not even close. What did the NFL figure out that all the other sports leagues didn't? And will any of them ever catch up?
The 50, Harper chasing, they're not going to catch him, it's going to be touchdown!
He could go all the way. Members only. Not the
The first
jacket.
difference between the NFL and European leagues stems from a single decision made more than 120 years ago.
Third base in the first inning.
In the mid-1800s, both America and England decided to create professional leagues for their favorite sports. In the US, that was baseball. In England, it was football. Okay, quickly before we move on, because this video is ultimately about American football, I'm going to call this sport football and this sport soccer. Apologies to my non-American viewers, but that's just how we're going to do it.
Yeah, we grown.
Both countries
we
wanted
grown.
to create a league where one,
Thank you
all
for
the best teams
clarifying
in the
that.
country could consistently
You see
play
how
each
easy
other,
it is
and
to clarify
the
your
team
point?
owners would make money. But
Anyway, let's
each
go.
achieved this in different ways because they have different geographies. In the U.S., the major cities
Folks go
and therefore
nuts
the
for
best teams are far
European
apart.
football.
A round trip for the Boston team to play the St. Louis team would take almost 3 days of travel, which cost the owner a lot of money. He needed to pay his players for all that time and, in fact, make them full-time employees, which was new back then. So when the National League
And you know how
formed,
they
it
get.
gave them some guarantees. First, a monopoly over their territory. The league wouldn't let in another Boston team, so they would always be the best team in their region, allowing them to attract the most fans and make the most money. Only in huge cities like New York and Chicago would they allow 2 teams. After establishing itself, the NL restricted membership, guaranteeing these teams a spot and creating the first closed league. The rest of America's sports leagues followed its example, including in 1920, the National Football League.
Football, Yankee style, rougher, more spectacular than rugby or soccer.
So Americans deciding to create closed leagues is a key decision that makes them different from European leagues. And I want to create an animation that we can use throughout the video to see how this works.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the league and these are the teams. In the NFL, there are 32 of them, and the best teams are up here and the worst down here. Okay, so this orange line means that the league is closed, but I kind of want to figure out a way to make this visual a little bit more memorable. Okay, let's use this to close it. Now, the size of each team is going to represent how rich they are, which is important because the NFL worried that the richest teams would buy up all the best players and always beat the poor teams. Basically, they worried every NFL season would end like this. And fans would find that boring. So early on, they made another key decision to avoid that.
Oh, the Bengals.
The NFL limits every team to spending the same amount on players every year, something called a salary cap.
Oh.
In addition, the worst teams in the league gets the first pick in a draft of college players the next year, giving them a better chance of moving up. These rules give every NFL team the same chance to succeed. This is how the NFL finished in the 2022-23 season. In the last decade, 8 different teams won the championship.
Chiefs are Super Bowl champions here in Miami.
You see?
These rules to keep teams equal is why...
Similarly, this is the same approach when you hear me raising my voice and saying bad words on this channel. This is why. This is proof. The NFL is proof that if you invest in, the NFL would be the United States. Each of the teams would be the different states, right? And you just check to make sure that everyone is cool. I don't care that we pay a little bit more taxes or that California collectively pays a little bit more taxes if, say, Louisiana were to actually invest in education. But the problem is only the rich people are getting rich out there and the poor people aren't going to school. And they're the worst state when it comes to education. And then they have the Speaker of the House who comes from the least educated state trying to tell people how to spend money. Boy, Congress has the power of the purse. That's how it's supposed to be.
It's often described
Checks and
American sports
balances.
leagues as socialist. And if we use our same diagram to look at Europe's soccer leagues, you can see why they're described as hyper-capitalist. Cities in England are much closer than in America, so in 1888, the founders of the Football League didn't give teams the same guarantees. Instead, they created a series of open leagues. It's called open because anyone can start a team and enter the bottom league. Then each year, the top few teams in each league are promoted up, and the bottom few are relegated down in order to keep the best teams together each season.
Yeah.
But unlike the NFL, it means any team can join the top league simply by winning.
Impossibly, illogically, Leicester City are the
You prove that you
champions
belong, and then you...
But this also means that any team can get kicked out if they have a bad season.
Well, it has been one hell of a ride for Leicester City.
How's that for
But
motivation?
7 years after they lifted the Premier League, it is time to say goodbye.
To make matters more cutthroat, England's football leagues don't have a salary cap like the NFL does. So rich teams can spend far more than the others and win more. This is why the Premier League finished like this in 2023 and why only 5 teams have won it in the past decade.
Yeah.
Today, every European country's soccer
And listen, the Saudis own one of these teams. Saudis have more money than you ever could imagine. Like, we sit here and we talk about Elon, and then the Saudis are sitting there giggling. Nobody checks their pay stubs.
works roughly in the same way, and many are dominated by the richest teams. But because they're in open leagues, they're still considered less valuable than most NFL teams. See, investors know if an NFL team finishes dead last, it gets to stay in the NFL next season, making NFL money.
Right.
But in a European league like the Premier League, when a team finishes last, they're kicked down to the lower, less popular league, where they'll make far less money. Even the threat of that happening is pressuring Premier League teams to spend dangerous amounts of money.
Newcastle United have broken their transfer record.
The English Premier League's record summer spending has come to an end.
Take Manchester City, who earned $788 million in revenue in 2022, the most in the Premier League. That year, the Washington Commanders made $545 million, the 8th most in the NFL. But Manchester City spent more than $614 million on player wages, while the Commanders were only allowed to spend $214 million because of the NFL's salary cap. That's the biggest reason why the Commanders ended up making $30 million more in profits. In fact, every NFL team
That's
was more
crazy.
profitable than Manchester City, which, again, was the most profitable team in England. Most teams in the Premier League actually lose money. Even though soccer teams are more popular than football teams, investors consider NFL teams to be more valuable because that league's guarantees and cushy safety net makes them a far safer bet than Europe's teams that need to spend big and get lucky just to maybe make a profit. But that leaves one more question about this list that becomes glaring when you expand it to the top 50. American baseball teams are in a closed league, but there are only 5 here. And American basketball teams are in a closed league with a salary cap, but there's only 6. Meanwhile, almost every NFL team is on this list. That's because the NFL saw what the future of sports would be long before anyone else did.
Who doesn't enjoy a football game if you're one of the lucky ones able to get a ticket? Thanks to the newest marvel of modern science, television, you can just lean back in a comfortable chair at home, relax, and watch the game.
In 1946, there were approximately 12,000 television sets in the U.S. 4 years later, there were about 4 million, and they were increasingly tuned to live sports. Major League Baseball broadcast its first game in 1939. 2 months later, the NFL followed. It was the start of a close relationship with television companies that would be...
If you want to go down some funny little, tiny little rabbit hole, pay attention, or not pay attention, but do research on why tennis balls are that color yellow. It's pretty cool.
A key ingredient to the NFL's business success. At first, NFL teams sold their television rights individually to their local stations, but by 1950s, big national networks wanted in. Football was dramatic programming that they could air relatively cheaply, and it allowed them to fill the otherwise boring Sunday afternoon slot. In 1961, the NFL sold the rights to broadcast all of its games to CBS, the first time any sports league sold its TV rights collectively, and the U.S. government sued them. The NFL prevailed and made a second revolutionary decision. In keeping with the spirit of equality, they decided to split that TV revenue equally among the teams. Arguably, the big city teams deserved a bigger share because they would attract more viewers, but the NFL believed sharing the revenue would enable them to grow rich together and keep every team competitive.
Yeah.
And they were right. One team from a small rural town in Wisconsin soon dominated the NFL.
The only
Green
professional
Bay.
team that ever has won 5 national championships. Green Bay on game day. Community spirit has encouraged these boys and kept them among the leaders.
And what's cool is not many people maybe know this or even understand this, but Green Bay is like a municipal kind of thing. So like the city of Green Bay owns Green Bay. How cool is that? Everywhere else, you know, we got in Chicago, we got the McCaskies and, you know, whatever it is that they're doing. But Green Bay, again, the community goes in, they bought the football team, and they won a bunch of championships. I think they're probably, the second or third most? I think the second most championships. Anyway, yeah, it's the NFL is really fun, really cool when you break it down like this.
1960s, TV networks helped make football America's favorite sport. Americans still love baseball and basketball, but NBA teams played 82 games a season, and MLB teams played 162, meaning many games were inconsequential. NFL teams only played 16 games, so every single one of them mattered. The TV networks loved that and paid the NFL more money each year, which the league passed along to the teams. But this TV revenue also pushed the NFL to think of its games not just as sports competitions, but as television products.
And we hit the 2-minute warning.
That'll bring us to the 2-minute warning. So it's 2-minute warning at the AFC title game.
The NFL instructed referees to pause the game 9 minutes into each half if play hadn't stopped yet, creating the first TV timeout. And it maintained breaks 2 minutes before the end of each half, the most dramatic moments in the game, so that TV networks could sell ads at a premium.
And ABC's NFL Monday Night Football presents.
Playing every game simultaneously divided viewership. So in 1970,
I read somewhere, I don't know if this is true, I haven't researched it at all, but I read somewhere where the 2-minute warning was always part of the game because they didn't have like big clocks to be put up, and people in the beginning of football, you'd never know what time it was or how much time is left. So they would do the 2-minute warning to let the crowd know that there's 2 minutes left in that half. Similarly, the seventh inning stretch in baseball, that was, I mean, it was never supposed to be a whole thing, but the owner of the Cubs way back in the day apparently was overweight, and it took him 6.5 innings to need to get up and stretch, because he was a big fella. So then that's why they call it the seventh inning stretch. And that happened the first time, or that was invented, I guess, or that was created in Wrigley Field, Chicago, Illinois. There you go.
TV networks got the NFL to move one game to Monday night. Monday Night Football was such a success that in 2006 they added a Thursday night game. In 2022, these 3 slots were the first, third, and 6th most watched TV shows in America. As early as the 1960s,
and now I think there's
the
football
NFL
games
welcomed
every
cameras
day.
on its sidelines and locker rooms, then on its equipment. In the 80s, it was the first league to have its referees use instant replay to review plays. The NFL even updated the rules to incentivize passing offenses, which TV audiences enjoyed the most. Deciding early to optimize itself for television is a major reason why today the NFL can sell its TV rights for far more than any other sports league. In fact, English soccer struggled to get its games reliably on TV until the 1980s, primarily because it was worried it would dissuade fans from attending them in person. Today, Europe's TV audience is divided among the many soccer leagues, while in the US, every football fan watches the NFL. This huge amount of TV money pouring into a
And they go to the
closed
game
league,
because they
where
want to be
average
on the
NFL
kiss
team
cam
is
and
now
on the
worth more
commercial
than
breaks
$5
and all that
billion,
stuff.
and therefore make up most of the world's most valuable sports teams, for now. In 2021, 12 of Europe's richest soccer clubs announced they were forming a new Super League. Each would be guaranteed a spot in this closed league, adhere to strict spending rules, and would share TV revenue, a lot like the NFL. It's no surprise that 3 of these teams are owned by people who also own American sports teams. Given soccer's global popularity, a league like that could make these teams billions of dollars every year, catapulting them past NFL teams. They canceled the plan when fans rose up in protest. But they're unlikely to give up because they know it would make
Fans are
them
like,
rich.
yo.
Just look at India. In 2008, when Indians launched a professional cricket league, they styled it after the NFL, creating a closed league, including just a few franchises, and splitting the TV revenue equally. A mere 15 years later, it's second behind the NFL in revenue and closing fast. The NFL figured out how to turn a distinctly American sport into the world's richest league. Now we're about to see the world's most popular sports try it for themselves.
And I think they should. It shows you there's power in numbers. It's not supposed to be all for me, none for thee. That's not how it works. If we build each other up as a community, I'm not saying socialism and all that stuff. I'm not saying none of that stuff. What I'm saying is if we build ourselves into a well-educated, thought out, very supportive country, it's going to solve so many problems. That's all I'm going to say. It's going to solve so many problems. You got to learn how to think for yourself. And look at, if you support each other, only good things happen. The NFL, I use the NFL as an example for so many governmental issues. And, people like to bitch and complain and fight and stuff like that. And I'm like, look, just look at the NFL. The NFL is doing it right. If you look at it as teams and you're building each other up and supporting each other, we can get through that. We can get through all of this. Anyway, I hope you liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, share it with each and every one of your friends. And if you want to come hang out with me and watch videos while I work on creative projects, hit that subscribe button and then change the bell so it says all. So that way, every time I come out with something new, you'll be alerted. Don't forget to go to coconutjustice.com and get you some gear that I think would look good on you. And with that, I'm out.
Coconut Justice.